Hey guys, my name is SickabOT1. Sorry about the bad lighting, I burnt a bulb. But anyway, it is time to bring back the top 20. I've been biding my time for when the top 20 got a lot of new songs, which seemed to be an eternity, but we finally have a majority of the top 20 being songs that weren't in my spring 2017 ranked video or my May 2017 video with True Music Reviews. Score 0 to 5, you know how it goes. Alright, let's go! Okay, no more MGK or Julia Michaels to take the bottom spot. What are we giving the bottom spot this time? Oh no.
I tell all my hoes, rake it up.
If you think you recognize this guy, it's because he had a minor hit with Down in the DM last year. That was always a guilty pleasure of mine, and his follow-up single, Law, was an underappreciated gem of 2016. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Or somewhat mighty. I'm honestly not really sure why I liked this guy to begin with. It always hurts to hear that combination of the eardrummers and Mike Will Made It watermarks at the beginning of a song, and I think I could go as far as to say that this is Mike Will's worst beat to date. Even more obnoxious ones like 23 had some sort of flavor, but this just sounds like nothing. It's a compressed sub-bass loop that doesn't do anything interesting and isn't even fully audible. I imagine this is the sound you'd get if you plugged a Sega Genesis into a broken speaker. Yo Gotti himself is probably the best part of the song, but only by default. He's competent, I guess, throwing around the same strip club bars you could expect him to drop on any song, with nothing really interesting. Nicki, on the other hand...
Brought out the pink Lamborghini just a race with China.
The first few bars of her verse are just rhyming the word China over and over again, and I don't want to hear about one of those being a reference to Black China or there being an internal rhyming, because if you want to play that second card, she still rhymes race with itself twice. Not to mention the way she emphasizes the word China is just obnoxious as hell.
Real thick vagina.
And throwing in the word vagina in the mix does not help whatsoever. Plus, she brings on the annoying accents that I have always hated about Nicki Minaj. Yeah, I hate this a lot, and I don't understand its appeal whatsoever. And the sooner it's out of the top 20, the better.
M's in my bank account, yeah, in my bank account.
Why is this here? Why is this a Spotify monster? Why? Why? This is one of the most boring songs of the year, bar none. Kinda speaks for itself. The guitar lick is underwhelming, the highlight is 21, literally just counting to 8, and is just nothing. And I hate to say that 2 songs in a row, but it's the truth. Also, it's been stuck at exactly number 12 for a few weeks now. That's something, right? That's amusing.
Push me to the edge, all my friends are dead.
I stand by the comments I made on my May 2017 video. This really isn't that deep. I find it weird that Uzi's random vocal tricks are being attributed to him trying to convey his misery of his girlfriend leaving him and feeling suicidal. I honestly don't buy it. I just find it irritating, and I have little reason to return to it. This has been number 1 on the country charts for more than 26 weeks. Half a year. This is not okay.
You know I love it when the music's loud, but come on, strip that down for me.
I already talked about this song in a full review. If you want to check that out, go ahead, because I think I had some good points in there. Basically, what you need to know, though, is that it's an underwhelming strip club anthem that gives me mixed feelings about Liam's upcoming solo career, and I'm not happy to see that it climbed all the way to the top 10 in the weeks after I made my review.
Oh, look what you made me do. Look what you made me do.
Be proud, America. This is what you booted out Despacito for.
I don't like your kingdom.
It kind of figures that Taylor's big return after years of feuds would flip the scripts that she's been using in her music so far. 1989, for the most part, was a record where Taylor owned up to some of her tropes in a mature way, not counting Shake It Off or Bad Blood. So, now that everybody thinks that you're the bad guy, why not play into that, right? Every note of this oozes pettiness to me, and I'm fairly certain that this was on purpose. The rap verses, the darker production than even Bad Blood had, the I'm too sexy interpolation, this bitch is snooty and she knows it.
Don't call me that.
Okay, sorry, jeez.
Look what you just made me do. Look what you just made me do.
The chorus is one of the most annoying moments in pop music this year, and it hurts to say that about someone who, on their last album, made some fantastic synth pop that ended up being some of the best material of her career. She's traded that in for a dark sound that she's trying to force, much like Miley Cyrus at one time. With all these complaints in mind, you might be wondering why this is a 1 out of 5 instead of a 0 out of 5. Well, a couple things.
But I got smarter, I got harder in the nick of time.
First, this pre-chorus is untouchable. The melody is catchy and the production is as full and catchy as Jack Antonoff will allow it to be. The second thing...
Oh, 'cause she's dead.
Yeah, these 10 seconds are so good that they bump the score up an entire point. I still pretty much hate this, though.
That little bitch, you can fuck with me if you wanted to.
Really? This is your girl? Really? Alright then. This got big way the hell out of nowhere, jeez. And since its debut, I've been struggling to understand its appeal. Cardi B jacks her flow from Kodak Black's No Flockin', hence the title, and I'm not impressed. No Flockin' is one of my least favorite Kodak Black songs for how sludgy and irritating it is. Cardi B is marginally better though, since she actually has somewhat of a normal voice. I say somewhat because throughout this song she forces her delivery so much that she just comes off as a poser to me. Not as much of one as Iggy Azalea, but I just don't find her threatening at all. I'm more intimidated by a performance when it sounds effortless, and this doesn't apply to Cardi B for me. That, and lyrically, she doesn't do anything Nicki Minaj couldn't. The beat's okay, I guess, but a bit too dreary for my tastes. This is just not for me, let's just leave it at that.
I don't wanna be alive.
We have a lot to unpack here. Suicide is difficult to talk about, and I give Logic props for giving it a shot. Big time. Though his take is a bit shallow and lacking in details. Now that's a big reason that this song is despised in my circle, but there are worse ways that he could have portrayed this. He could have easily framed some sort of scapegoat for his depression, or made it a guilt trip for someone. Making it an uplifting message was about the best way that Logic could have done this. And in my opinion, there is a lot to admire in this execution. First off, by not making this about himself like he kinda does throughout the album Everybody. In fact, he and his guest artists only appear in monitors sparsely throughout the narrative. I mean, I guess you could make the argument that he says I a lot, and that is true, but it still doesn't really have a lot to do with him specifically. He's playing characters after all. That and the message of the song is this: there's always someone you can talk to. Whether it's someone close to you, or with the hotline that the song is named after. Not only is this admirable, it's also been effective. More people know about this hotline than ever before and are using it, and that's a great thing, undeniably. On a musical level, I'll admit this isn't very stellar. It's not bad either, but I think Everybody offered a lot more interesting music. Though Logic performance is alright, but he is kind of outclassed by Alessia Carr's verse and Khalid's outro. So there's that. You may have kicked out Harry too early, America, but at least you left one good One Direction solo song in the top 20. I'm not going to make the argument that this is better than This Town, because I still like This Town a lot, but Slow Hands is a little more my speed. It's the kind of indie rock with just a smidge of lo-fi that I'm a sucker for. The reverb complements Niall's voice well, and the bass line is simple and driving, and the guitar melodies are pleasant. It's a song about foreplay, and for that, the presentation is the perfect amount of sensual and laid back, and it's refreshing for that. Not too sleazy, not too sleepy, just right. I am excited to see where Niall takes this in the future, because as good as This Town was, I wouldn't want him to make only acoustic guitar songs on his own. I mean, even Ed Sheeran mixes it up with his instrumentation every now and again. Speaking of which...
I'm in love with the shape of you.
At this rate, I'm just prepared for this song to stay in the top 20 for an entire year. Maybe then I'll finally get sick of it. I feel like I should like this a lot more. I do still like it a fair bit, but still. You don't have to tell me that this song sounds suspiciously like No Problem by Chance the Rapper. I really don't care. More gospel is usually a good thing when it comes to music. I love that stuff. For example, one of my favorite songs of all time is The Greatest Man Who Ever Lived by Weezer, a song that uses a lot of different styles of music, but is mostly rooted in gospel. It's a good style, alright? And even though Demi's more of a rock vocalist, I think she shows here that she can make gospel work for her well. She's still a demanding presence and she fits in pretty well, especially when she's telling off an ex. Good fit for a vocalist of her power. I do have some problems with the production, though. Mostly in the chorus. The pianos can get swamped out by the bass, and it peaks a little too much for it to really shine. It's not unbearable by any stretch, but it kinda robs the chorus of having as much power as it could. As it stands, though, this is definitely a fun kiss-off anthem, and it'll be interesting to see how Demi's next album goes. This song's on its way out, dropped off the top 10 pretty hard in the week that I'm doing this for. I still like the song, but no complaints. it had a much better run than I would have expected. I would say it's time to make room for Versace on the floor, but that has decided to flop, and I'm not happy about that.
DJ Khaled.
I don't know if you could take it.
Behold! A Latin song that has different percussion! Okay, none of the artists on this are Latin, at least I don't think, but I can appreciate the influences anyway, especially with that guitar lick from Maria Maria. Actually, I haven't heard that song, and people seem to really hate it, so at least they used it pretty well. It's also a pretty good fit for both of our performers. Rihanna sounds sexier than she has in a while, even with some questionable lines about old football teams or that naked bit. Whatever, she still writes this well. I even like Bryson Tiller's contributions to this.
I heard that pussy for the taking.
I mean, his verse isn't great, but I'm glad this song has a little variety to it, and this is actually a good fit for him too. I don't know why he keeps trying to do the moody stuff when this was his true calling all along. Pining for Rihanna. Actually, when I put it like that, maybe Bryson Tiller should never try to do anything ever. Why isn't this a 5? Well, mostly for the lyrics. They get corny in a way that I don't think they were really trying to do, and that does detract from the charm a little bit. But this is still an incredibly enjoyable listen nonetheless. One of my favorite DJ Khaled songs, if that means anything. It probably doesn't. Yes! A legitimate indie rock song in the top 20. This has been a long time coming. This is the kind of stuff I live for. Tight guitar work with a bit of sax thrown in there, a swing vibe. Awesome. Though the singer is using a pretty weak falsetto, which is not something I typically look for in my indie rock. Brian Aubert of Silver Sun Pickups may spend a lot of time in his upper range, but he still has grit to his voice. This guy, on the other hand, is pretty quiet throughout, especially on the chorus. And yet, it fits phenomenally well. The song's pretty bass heavy, so it makes sense to balance that out with some treble. Besides, this guy just sounds cool. He's energetic and controlled, and only adds to the style of this track. I adore this. And yet there's one thing that keeps this from being a 5 out of 5 for me. One little line in the chorus. I think that line is pushing it in terms of corniness. It's the most prominent line in the song, and yet I don't buy it for a second. This guy may have style, but he doesn't exactly feel like a rebel to me. Kinda like a poser, really. Maybe that was the intention, but I still feel pretty stupid hearing this line or even quietly singing along to it, which I'm certain to do when nobody's around to hear me.
Pasito, pasito, suave, suavecito.
In a just world, this would have broken Mariah and Boyz II Men's record. See, Jordan, I didn't forget that they had the record too. But still, 16 weeks is an impressive as hell feat considering it's only happened once before. Great job, Despacito. Everyone else may be sick of you, but I still love you a lot.
You take me places that tear up my reputation.
I already reviewed this song, gave it a pretty positive review, and I stand by that. Shawn Mendes is good again. He's finally realized what his strengths are, and he's using them well in easily his best song. Kudos, kid. I knew you could do it, even when no one else thought you could. A song with a Race Remembered member is in the top 5 of my ranking. Either the charts are in a terrible state right now, or I'm just going crazy. Actually, nah, this is legitimately a great song, and it's all because of Sway Lee. Here, he's more melodic than I think he's ever been in his career. That is, thanks to the reverb, but unlike a hack like Lil Uzi Vert, Sway's using it correctly to accent his vocals and melody. He sounds gorgeous in this song, and that is saying a lot about someone who typically squawks stuff like, "I'm a trendsetter!" This is also probably one of the strongest Afrobeat/dancehall beats that we've had in a long time, and that is saying something considering we've been drowning in these kinds of songs. Sure, it uses your typical Latin percussion pattern for a bit, but it still manages to feel larger than life. The synths are transcendent. They manage to do a lot with a little, invoking the feeling of African culture in a way that is, in my eyes, unforgettable. I adore this song. Oh, and French Montana's here, I guess. They say it's his song, but I don't believe him.
Doing shit you don't even see him move.
Bitch, be humble. Bitch, sit down.
King of rap.
First things first, I'ma say all the words inside my head.
You know, I don't think I've talked about my love for Imagine Dragons in a video yet. Dan Reynolds and company are, in my opinion, something special. Radioactive from 2013 is one of my favorite songs of the decade, as it shows raw power and tons of creativity in instrumentation and composition. Really, I adore their passion and creativity above all else. That's what I feel has allowed them to stand out even against their other pop rock contemporaries. Part of me was worried when the biggest hit from Smoke and Mirrors, I Bet My Life, didn't even do that well in the Hot 100 and missed the year-end completely, but with their third album Evolve and its lead single Believer, they're back in the spotlight, and that makes me very happy. But I didn't always feel this way. For the first few listens, Believer was a very weird song in terms of structure and sound, and at first, it was far from one of my favorites from the band. But then something clicked with me. I don't know what clicked with me, but I'm glad it did. It's a song where Dan embraces his pain and doubt, so of course it's going to sound foreboding. From the light, simple guitar lick in the background to the pounding percussion, this is a different kind of self-empowerment anthem. Namely, one that can actually self-empower. Like, look at me, I've endured some of the worst and I'm ready to take over the world. Those who doubt me don't matter to me anymore. And it's one of the few instances where I actually believe that. On an instrumental level, I can see why this song in particular hasn't sat well with some people. Again, it's kind of an awkward structure and it isn't very catchy, but for me, it exudes power. It's one of the most haunting things on the Hot 100 right now, and in all the right ways. Also, Dan Reynolds is a seriously underrated vocalist, and you cannot convince me otherwise. You're watching this video right. There is a Charlie Puth song at the top of my ranking.
You've been going around every...
Given how infamous this guy has been in my immediate circle, this song has been incredibly divisive. On some level, I see that, but honestly, I gotta give some credit where credit is due. This is awesome! And no, it's not just because of the bass line. That is one of the reasons that this song was awesome, but not the only one. I love the way the synths add some tension to the pre-chorus. I love how the guitar is plucked in the first verse and then strummed and swing for the second. I love how Charlie's vocals are more demanding in some places and more willowy in others, depending on the scene. It all just comes together powerfully and into an utterly addictive listen that I've come back to numerous times throughout the summer. Finally, Charlie Puth has figured out a lane that works best for him. Not that lovey-dovey crap he was doing on 9-Track Mind, but bitterness. Not that I really sympathize with him on this, he's showing he cares way too much about this ex that keeps trying to take advantage of him, and the fact that it might be based off some real-life celebrity drama is pretty uncomfortable too. But he's able to sell his writing nonetheless, for possibly the first time in his life. Man, I love this. If I was excited for Shawn Mendes' return to form, you bet I'm excited that Charlie Puth made a legitimate masterpiece. So, this was a wild week. From comebacks that both disappointed and surprised me to some welcome new trends, I can say I'm pretty happy with 2017 in music, and this week in particular. This gets a score of 62 points out of a possible 100 for me. Hopefully I didn't spoil too much of my best list and my worst list for this video. And with that, take care.